Sigma males have preferences that make absolutely no sense to other people. Things that would bore or frustrate most men are exactly what Sigma males seek out. These 8 things reveal who's actually a Sigma male versus who's just pretending to be one. Look, anyone can claim to be a Sigma male. Anyone can say they prefer independence and solitude. That's surface level. But there are specific things that genuine Sigma males are drawn to that reveal the real psychology underneath. Things that seem pointless or boring to most people but are deeply satisfying to Sigma males. These aren't traits. These aren't behaviors. These are genuine preferences that you either have or you don't. If you have them, you're probably a Sigma male. If you don't, you're probably something else. I've got something exclusive for you. Sigma's Black Book of Untouchable Power. This isn't feel-good motivation. It's the kind of insider mindset and strategy that builds men other people don't challenge, don't question, and don't underestimate. This guide won't stay up forever. Certain people would rather you never read it. Get your copy in the description or the pinned comment while it's still available. Let's find out which category you fall into. 1. Long solo drives with no destination. The first uncommon thing Sigma males actually enjoy is driving alone for hours with no particular destination or purpose. Most people drive to get somewhere. Point A to point B. The drive is just the necessary transit between locations. If they could teleport, they would. Sigma males genuinely enjoy the drive itself, especially long drives, especially alone, especially with no specific destination. 3 hours driving through empty roads at night, 5 hours on a highway through nowhere, 2 hours on back roads exploring areas they've never seen, no podcast playing, no music, sometimes just silence and driving. To most people, this sounds like torture. You drove for 4 hours to nowhere. Why? What a waste of time. To a Sigma male, those 4 hours are valuable. Not wasted. Valuable. Here's why they like this. The drive creates a specific mental state that's hard to achieve otherwise. You're physically occupied with driving, so your conscious mind is engaged. But driving is automatic enough that your subconscious can process freely. It's moving meditation. Your body is active. Your environment is changing constantly. But your mind is free to think, process, work through problems, or just exist without demands. There's also the autonomy element. Complete control over speed, direction, route, duration. No schedule, no obligations, no destination that must be reached. Pure freedom of movement. And there's the solitude factor. Truly alone. No phone calls expected, no messages demanding response. Just you, the vehicle, and the road. Most people need entertainment to fill time. Sigma males find the drive itself sufficient. The movement, the thinking space, the autonomy, the solitude. If you've ever driven for hours with no destination just because you felt like it, and those hours felt satisfying rather than wasted, you might be a Sigma male. If this sounds boring or pointless to you, you're probably not. 2. Sitting in empty spaces doing nothing. The second uncommon preference is for empty physical spaces where they can just exist without doing anything. Most people avoid empty spaces. Empty coffee shop, they feel awkward. Empty park, they feel exposed. Empty building, they feel uncomfortable. Emptiness registers as wrong somehow. Sigma males actively prefer empty spaces. Empty parking lot at 2 a.m. Empty beach in winter. Empty museum on a weekday morning. Empty restaurant right when it opens. They'll specifically time activities to avoid crowds, not just because crowds are annoying, but because empty spaces have a quality they find appealing. And here's the key part. They'll go to these empty spaces and just sit, not reading, not on their phone, not doing anything productive, just sitting and existing in the space. To most people, this is incomprehensible. You went to an empty park to sit on a bench and do nothing for an hour? Were you depressed? Number. That's just a pleasant way to spend time for a Sigma male. The empty space provides something valuable, no social demands, no performance required, no awareness of being watched or perceived, just existence without observation. It also provides space for thinking. When there's nothing competing for attention, the mind can work freely. Process background thoughts, sort through information. Just exist without input. Most people can't tolerate this. They need stimulation, entertainment, connection, activity. Sitting in an empty space doing nothing feels like torture. For Sigma males, it feels like relief. Like the pressure valve releasing. Like finally getting space to just be without any demands or expectations. If you've ever sought out empty spaces, specifically because they're empty, and spent time there doing nothing and found it satisfying, you might be a Sigma male. If empty spaces make you uncomfortable and doing nothing feels like wasting time, you're probably not. 3. Studying systems nobody else cares about. The third uncommon preference is spending significant time understanding systems and mechanisms that have no practical application and no social value. Most people learn things for practical reasons. Career advancement, making money, impressing others, solving problems they have. Sigma males will spend dozens of hours learning about systems purely because the system itself is interesting. How medieval supply chains worked, the mathematics of traffic flow, the evolutionary biology of deep-sea creatures, the engineering of 1970s, Soviet manufacturing, the linguistic patterns in dead languages, things that will never be useful, things nobody they know cares about, things that won't advance any goal or impress anyone, just intrinsically interesting systems. They'll read multiple books about these topics, watch documentaries, study diagrams, understand the system deeply purely for the satisfaction of understanding it. To most people, this is bizarre. You spent 20 hours learning about Roman aqueduct engineering? Why? Are you building an aqueduct? No? Then why? Because the system is interesting. That's the entire reason. This reveals something about how Sigma males think. They find systems inherently fascinating, regardless of utility. Understanding how things work is intrinsically rewarding. Most people are utility-driven. They learn what's useful, what advances goals, what provides social or career value. Sigma males are curiosity-driven about systems specifically. Not random curiosity. Focused curiosity about how complex systems function. This is also why they're good at pattern recognition. They've studied enough different systems that they recognize universal patterns across domains. The medieval supply chain has patterns that appear in modern software architecture. Traffic flow mathematics applies to network theory. They're not studying these things to make those connections. They're studying them because systems are inherently interesting. The cross-domain pattern recognition is a side effect. If you've ever gone deep on understanding a system that has no practical value to you just because you found it interesting, you might be a Sigma male. If learning things without practical application feels like wasting time, you're probably not. 4th, being completely unavailable for extended periods. The 4th uncommon preference is periodically going completely dark and being unreachable for days or weeks. Most people maintain constant availability. They respond to messages within hours. They're always reachable. Being unavailable creates anxiety for them. Sigma males periodically need to be completely unavailable, not because they're busy, because they need to be unreachable. They'll turn off their phone for 3 days, ignore all messages for a week, disappear from all communication channels for extended periods. Not because something's wrong, not because they're avoiding anything specific, just because they need a period of complete unavailability. To most people, this is concerning. Are you okay? You haven't responded in 4 days? I was worried something happened. Nothing happened. They just needed to be unavailable. This need for periodic unavailability comes from how Sigma males manage their energy. Availability is a constant, low-level drain. Even if you're not actively responding, knowing that messages are coming in and expecting response creates cognitive load. Periodically going completely dark eliminates that load entirely. No messages to respond to, no expectation of availability, complete disconnection from communication obligations. This allows for deep focus, for complete mental rest, for existence without any external demands. Most people can't do this. They feel guilty about not responding, anxious about what they're missing, concerned about seeming rude or unavailable. Sigma males feel relief. The pressure is off. Nobody can reach them. They're free to exist without communication obligations. They'll usually warn important people beforehand. I'm going dark for a few days, not avoiding you specifically. Just need to be completely unavailable. I'll reconnect after. Then they disappear. Completely. And return when they're ready. If you periodically need to be completely unreachable, and those periods feel restorative rather than isolating, you might be a Sigma male. If being unreachable for more than a day makes you anxious, you're probably not. 5. Observing social dynamics without participating. The fifth uncommon preference is watching social dynamics play out without any desire to participate in them. Most people want to be part of social situations, either participating directly or at least having the option to participate. Sigma males genuinely enjoy watching social dynamics from outside without any participation. Sitting in a coffee shop, watching people interact. Standing at the edge of a party, observing group dynamics. Being in a meeting, watching the power plays happen. Not participating, not wanting to participate. Just observing. To most people, this seems sad or antisocial. Why are you just standing there? Come join the conversation. They don't want to join. Observing is more interesting than participating. Here's what they're doing. They're watching patterns. Who's trying to dominate? Who's performing? Who's genuinely connecting versus who's performing connection? How the group hierarchy is being established and maintained. It's like watching a nature documentary, except it's humans. And it's fascinating specifically because they're not part of it. When you're participating, you can't see the patterns clearly. You're emotionally invested. You're managing your own position. You're in the game. When you're observing from outside, you see everything. The subtext, the manipulation, the performance, the authenticity, the calculations happening in real time. And for Sigma males, watching this is genuinely more interesting than participating in it. Most people find this boring or uncomfortable. They want to be part of things. They want to engage. Watching without participating feels like missing out. Sigma males feel the opposite. Participating feels like missing the show. Observing lets them actually see what's happening. This is also why Sigma males understand human behavior better than most people. They've spent thousands of hours observing dynamics that others were too busy participating in to actually see. If you've ever chosen to observe social situations rather than participate because observing was more interesting, you might be a Sigma male. If observing without participating feels like you're missing out, you're probably not. Sixth, solo activities that most people do socially. The sixth uncommon preference is doing activities alone that most people only do socially. Most people go to restaurants with others, travel with companions, attend events in groups. These activities are inherently social for most people. Sigma males prefer doing these things alone, not because they don't have people to do them with, because they are better alone. Solo travel, Not backpacking for self-discovery, just normal travel, completely alone. No meetups with locals, no group tours, just solo exploration, solo dining, not grabbing fast food alone, going to nice restaurants and having full meals completely alone, preferring this to dining with company. Solo concerts, solo movies, solo events, things that most people would feel awkward doing alone. To most people, this seems lonely or sad. You went to Paris alone? The whole week? Didn't you get lonely? Number. It was better alone. Here's why Sigma males prefer this. Other people constrain the experience. You have to coordinate, compromise on what to see, match their pace, consider their preferences, engage in conversation when you'd rather just observe. Alone, you experience things exactly how you want. Move at your own pace. Change plans instantly. Spend 3 hours in a museum or 3 minutes. No explanation needed. No coordination required. The experience is purer, more direct, more aligned with exactly what you want from it. Most people find solo activities uncomfortable. They need someone to share the experience with for it to feel meaningful. The sharing is part of the value. For Sigma males, the sharing dilutes the value. The experience is better when it's direct and unmediated by others' preferences and needs. This doesn't mean they never do things with others. Just that for most activities, they prefer solo. And when they do include others, it's very selective about who and why. If you prefer doing activities alone that most people do socially, and you find those activities better alone, you might be a Sigma male. If activities alone feel incomplete or lonely, you're probably not. 7. Projects with no audience or external validation. The 7th uncommon preference is working on projects that nobody will ever see and that provide no external validation. Most people work on things that others will see. Career projects, social media content, creations they'll share, art they'll display. The audience or validation is part of the motivation. Sigma males will work extensively on projects that have no audience and never will. Building something complex that will never be shown to anyone. Writing that will never be published. Skills developed purely for personal satisfaction. Systems created that only they will use. Dozens or hundreds of hours invested in something that provides zero external validation and was never meant to. To most people, this seems pointless. You built that entire system and nobody else will ever use it? Why not share it? Get feedback? Let others benefit? Because it wasn't built for others. It was built for the satisfaction of building it. The external validation isn't the point. The creation itself is the point. This reveals something important about Sigma male motivation. They're not driven by external validation. They're driven by internal satisfaction from the work itself. Most people need external feedback to maintain motivation. They need to know others see value in what they're doing. Without that feedback, motivation dies. Sigma males generate motivation internally. The satisfaction comes from doing the thing well, not from others seeing that they did it. This is also why Sigma males often have capabilities nobody knows about. They've developed skills purely for personal satisfaction that they've never had reason to demonstrate publicly. You might work with a Sigma male for years and never know he speaks 3 languages, built complex software systems as a hobby, or is an expert in some obscure field. Because he never mentioned it and you never asked. It wasn't secret. It just wasn't relevant to share. The work was done for internal satisfaction, not external recognition. If you work on projects extensively that nobody will ever see, and you find that satisfying rather than frustrating, you might be a Sigma male. If you need external validation to maintain motivation for projects, you're probably not. 8. Silence over small talk. The 8th uncommon preference is choosing comfortable silence over small talk in social situations. Most people fill silence with conversation. Silence is awkward. It needs to be fixed with talking. Even meaningless small talk is better than silence. Sigma males prefer silence to small talk. Actively prefer it. Given the choice between having a superficial conversation about nothing or sitting in silence, they choose silence every time. Elevator with a colleague. Most people make small talk about the weather or weekend plans. Sigma male stands in comfortable silence. Waiting room with acquaintances. Most people chat about nothing to fill the time. Sigma male sits quietly. Car ride with someone they don't know well. Most people maintain conversation to avoid awkwardness. Sigma male is fine with silence. To most people, this seems rude or antisocial. Why aren't you talking? The silence is so awkward. The silence isn't awkward to the Sigma male. The small talk would be awkward. Forcing conversation about nothing. Performing social lubrication that isn't needed. That's the uncomfortable part. Silence is neutral, comfortable, requires no performance, no energy expenditure, no pretending to care about conversational topics that don't matter. Most people can't tolerate silence with others. It feels like failure to connect, like something's wrong, like they're being rude. Sigma males find silence with others comfortable. Not all the time, not with everyone. But in situations where small talk would be forced, silence is the better option. If there's something substantive to discuss, they'll discuss it. If there isn't, silence is fine. This doesn't mean they're incapable of small talk. They can perform it when strategically necessary. They just don't enjoy it and won't choose it over silence. Most people would rather have meaningless conversation than comfortable silence. It feels more socially appropriate, more connected. Sigma males find meaning in silence that small talk destroys. Silence allows thought, allows presence, allows existing without performance. If you prefer comfortable silence to forced small talk, and you don't find silence awkward in situations where most people would talk, you might be a Sigma male. If silence with others makes you uncomfortable and you feel compelled to fill it, you're probably not. So those are 8 uncommon things that only Sigma males genuinely like. Long solo drives to nowhere, empty spaces doing nothing, studying useless systems, being completely unavailable, observing without participating, solo activities, projects with no audience, silence over small talk. Most people find some or all of these things boring, uncomfortable, pointless, or lonely. Sigma males find them satisfying, restorative, interesting, and preferable to the alternatives. If you recognize yourself in most of these, you're probably a Sigma male. These aren't things you can fake enjoying. You either find them genuinely satisfying or you don't. If you found yourself thinking, that sounds terrible to most of these, you're probably not a Sigma male. And that's fine. Most people aren't. But these preferences reveal who actually has Sigma psychology versus who just likes the label. If you're a Sigma male who genuinely enjoys these things, drop a comment with 8/8 if you related to all 8, or tell me which number you related to most. If you found some of these relatable but not all, you might have Sigma tendencies without being fully a Sigma male. That's valid too. And if none of these sound appealing, you're definitely not a Sigma male. Figure out what you actually are and optimize for that instead. Until next time, understand your actual preferences.